Hello, welcome to our VBS EdTech YouTube channel. This is Bharti here, and today I'll be covering the part 2 for UX and UI design. So let's start. So today we'll be learning about areas related to building the user experience. Okay, so which all areas the user experiences focus on, what all things we can do under the UX, and all these things you will be learning today. You will be understanding about where all UX is applied and what are all the different fields where UX comes into the picture and everything about it. Okay, so UX is a growing field that is very much still being defined. Creating a successful user centered design encompasses the principles of human computer interactions. So, what is HCI? HCI full form is human computer interaction. So, in today's world, we have a computer, all of us have a computer, right? So it may be in the form of a laptop, in a form of a computer, in a form of a system, in form of a tablet, in the form of a phone. All these things comes into a computer thing, right? So we all interact with these systems that is known as the human computer interactions. Okay, and goes further to include the following disciplines. So, there are some disciplines we will be coming across in the next slide, and we will be understanding in depth of user experience, where it is applied, what are the principles. Okay, so let's start. The first slide, which is tells you about the project management. So, in today's world, there are many MNCs, there are many startups, mid-levels companies who are providing services or have their own products, and they do the project management for that product or services, right? So this focuses on the planning and organizing the project and its resources. This includes identifying and managing the life cycle to be used. So there is a product or there is a service which we are providing. There is a life cycle from start to the end. What are all the steps which has to be followed, which has to be taken? Who is managing that project? All that part comes in this. Applying it to the user-centered design process, formulating the project team, the team who is working with you with the project which you are handling. So you have to manage the team, breaking down the principles of what it has to be done. And then the next step, all this part comes into this and efficiently guiding the team through the phases until the project completion. So the entire team, the project is break down into smaller modules, and who should be working with the first and who should be working on the second, and what is the priority level of the task, subtask which you have divided, which task has to be completed first, and then the next step has to be taken, so that there are many things which there has to be like the task one has to be completed, and then only we can move with the task 2, and then we can proceed with the task 3. So the priority level of the some modules task which you have divided depends, right? So in that part comes all this comes into the project management. Let's move on to the next slide, which tells about the user research. So whenever you are building a project or whenever you have a demand coming out from the client, you always do the user research, right? So user research focuses on planning and organizing a project and its resources. Okay, so there are many project which comes into the picture. So suppose you have more things which you have done into your earlier projects. At that time, you use those resources. You use, suppose you have a project which you have done. A particular section can be similar in this project also. So what you do, you just copy that part of code and then customize it to your present clients, right? So that is where you manage the resources. Okay, so that is where your planning comes into pictures, and organizing a project and its resources. Everything comes into picture at that particular time. Then we have include identifying and managing the life cycle to be used, applying it to the user-centered design process, and then formulating the project team and efficiently guiding the team through all the phases until project completion. So there are many phases in which your team will be stuck. Your team will be not able to move forward. Then at that particular time, the person who is there guiding them should be capable enough to guide them for the next step, next phase on what it has to be done. So let's move to the next slide. It tells you about the usability evaluation. So what it is, usability evaluation focuses on how well users can learn and use a product to achieve their goals. Okay, so it also refers to how satisfied users are with that process. So you have created something, you have delivered something to the user. How well then are they are able to use that product or services? All that part comes into the usability evaluation. So whenever you have given the client to test something or you're testing something, you always check what is the usability, something which you have created, thinking something, or after doing a research, is it actually useful? Is the user actually feasible? Is the thing which you have created is feasible according to the user requirement? All this part comes into the usability evaluation. Okay, so let's move with the next slide, which tells you about the information architecture. Information architecture focuses on how information is organized, how it is structured, and how it is presented to the users. So the information, while it is coming from the user or clients, your potential clients, will be very scattered. The information they give is very scattered. The information they could have given before 1 week, and the information again, when you tell them to give some other information, they give it something else. And that at that particular time, the person should be capable enough to arrange it, to organize the data, to structure it, and provide it to the his teammate who was working with him. That part comes into the information architecture. Next, let's move on to the next slide, which tells about user interface design. So after completing all this research, we have the user interface design, which focuses on anticipating what users might need to do and ensure that the interface has elements that are easy to access, easy to understand, and used to facilitate those actions. Okay, so user interface design, after doing all the research, we go move on with which typography we have to use, which color template we have to use, and all this information once it is gathered and wireframes are ready. At that particular time, the team moves on making the UI designs. Basically, the basic screens which the user will be interacting, all those the screens come into the user interface design. Okay, so it is nothing but the application of what all the team has understood about the gathered information and putting it into the picture, putting it live, making the visual designs of it. All that comes into the user interface design. Okay, so let's move on with the next slide, which is nothing but the interaction design. The short term is IHD. So the interaction design focuses on creating engaging interactive systems with well thought out behaviors. So you have designed some UI screen, but what is the use of it? How the user will be interacting with it? What happens when the user clicks on that particular UI screen? What would happen if he clicks on that particular UI element? What happens next? And what happens prior to it? How will the user reach to that particular UI? What will be the interaction after he clicks onto that particular element? All that part comes into the interaction design. So let's move on with the next slide, which is nothing but the visual design. Visual design focuses on ensuring aesthetically pleasing interface that is in line with brand goals. So your client, your user has a particular, suppose they have a particular brand goal, that this is the typography which we would like to use in our visual designs, and this is the color template which is particularly related to our brand. At that particular time, we have to be very careful about the visual designs which we have delivered, and we have to keep checking, are we able to follow the guidelines given by the client or by the company you are working with? What are their brand goals? Okay. Let's move on to the next slide, which is the content strategy. So content strategy focuses on writing and curating useful content by planning the creation, delivery, and governance behind it. So always, whenever you are preparing a content, it has to be unique. All the social, suppose you have a social media, right? So we want a social media campaign to be run. At that particular time, you have to prepare the strategy. You cannot post anything randomly. So at that particular time, you have to very careful on what content you are preparing, what is the strategy behind that content. All that part comes into the content strategy. Next, let's move on with the next slide, which is the accessibility. So accessibility focuses on how a disabled individual access or benefits from its site or system or application. Okay. So and then in section 508 is the governing principle of accessibility. Yes. So next one with the web analytics. Web analytics focuses on collection, reporting, and analysis of website data. So now website is live. So after the website is live, what's happening with the website? How many clients are able to come? How many people are coming and liking our website? How many people are coming and browsing our website? What is the interaction time? We say interaction time. All this part comes into the web analytics. That's all for today. Thank you very much for watching our video. Please like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and please support us to grow. Thank you.